Hey, Frozen Lunch Tray here, and welcome to our Friday highlight here in Big Race in Ranked Domination Mode, where I'm going to be featuring the recently newer Tier 8 Pan American battleship, which I'm just going to call Red River. So this, with being Pan American, comes out of Brazil. And I want to take a moment here and say that there are times I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce certain names of ships in this game. And I even try to do my best at times when I remember to look up beforehand, try to how to pronounce the name. And I did that with Red River here, and I found nothing. Some of you saying, well, Flimsy, you could use Google Translate. It's like, no. Google Translate is a hit and miss regularly, and I'm not going to trust Google Translate. It's kind of like the thing, I promise we'll talk about the ship. I think YouTube content creators, and certainly myself, we get griefed at times for butchering the names of ships, but I mean, there's so many different languages and nationalities like in the game. So how to keep certain vocabulary, grammatical rules correct, depending on what language we're talking about, right? Like even when you go from English to Norwegian, like I live in Norway, I'm learning Norwegian, I'm speaking it more and more and more. Like there's certain grammatical things that change. You go from America or English, United States English to Norwegian. There's differences when you go from American English to British English. And there's differences even like with how you pronounce the grammatical rules with Dutch. So I tried. I'm not always going to get it right. I literally work with over 50 different nationalities. So I actually do try. So Red River here, fun boat. Wargaming brought in the Pan American battleship line. And this line does some things very good, and other things when you look at statistically with this ship line, it looks rather bad. So for example, the Red River here is a brawling Pan American battleship with secondaries, and so she's meant to play this mid to close range. So I think the ship is phenomenal and ranked. It plays really strong. And in addition, when you get to the funny button, which you see we're filling up that progress bar, I think it's called, at least here in the ship builder, it's called modified secondary munitions, where you get this, once you've filled the progress bar, which we're kind of maybe waiting to if this battleship pops back out from behind the islands here, has a duration of 30 seconds, and what it does is, at least for the Red River here, is your secondary battery reload time drops by negative 15%, your secondary battery damage goes up plus 25%, and your secondary battery firing range goes by plus 20%. So your standard secondary battery range on this boat is 11.5. But you can see on the mini map we haven't used it yet. Here we go. So go from 11.5 to, was that 13.8? I think that's what I'm seeing on the mini map. It's not full blown on my screen in the recording software I'm using. So this ship does something really good, which is brawling, but kind of just sitting exactly how I'm playing around the F key, because it's interesting in how Wargaming made this ship line is that they evolved it around the secondaries, yet they nerfed the secondaries to build it around the funny button, this F key. And as soon as it goes down, once you're getting either potential damage or you're getting shell hits with your main battery, you're immediately filling that progress bar again. So often in the playstyle, especially in ranked, and maybe even at randoms as an example as well, is you often will naturally kind of go into this kiting stance that you're just going to kite out. The brawling battleship player, a secondary battleship player, who's in the kiting stance to enemy ships out pushing into him, or just showing complete broadside like this North Carolina here, have the advantage. You get to dictate the terms of the battle. Whether you're going to reverse in, you're just going to sit, or you're going to create some more distance. And like here, when we get to use the funny button, when we're on Big Race, you know, look at the mini map. Like our secondaries like go all the way over into the 8 line. And if we were even more, maybe over on the 4 or 5 line, like we would be covering like a large area of the map. So it's really easy to farm a lot of damage quite quickly. And here's the funny thing regarding this ship. So with the main battery, you have 12 356mm guns. So part of the WoW's wiki reads that this was a hypothetical design for a Brazilian Navy battleship developed and based on the British shipbuilding advancements of the 1920s and 1930s, and the ship would future dual-purpose and anti-aircraft armament of the American origin, likely received during modernization in the US in the 1940s. So this ship never existed. It's just another hypothetical ship in the game. So when you look at the, as this game is getting closer to wrapping up, and then I have a second random battle we'll go into, but when you look at this ship on paper, so for example, let's say we want to look at the main battery armor piercing damage per minute, and you're comparing it with like 44 other tier 8 battleships. Where does Red River rank? I'm probably making some South Americans mad that I'm just calling Red River, but I don't care. Ranks 34 of 44. When you look at the high explosive damage per minute, the ship ranks a bit higher, 12 out of 44. And then you're like, yeah, Flimsy, you said this was a secondary battleship. Yes, so the secondary DPM must be fantastic, right? No. So just normal, it's actually places 23rd of 44 tier 8 battleships. But I think that number doesn't get wrapped around the F key. And the reason why it is a bit different here is because the secondary battery on this boat hits harder, because what you have in terms of the secondary armament capability is that you have, at least on this ship, I think it goes up on the Los Andes in the Libertad, is you have 6 by 127mm guns, and then you have 8 by 2 152mm guns. And those 152mm guns, they fire high explosive shells that hit for 2,600. The 127s, they fire high explosive shells that hit for 1,800, as it were. So you're getting decent alpha, and then you activate your F key, right, on the secondary battery, and then those 127s are now doing 2,250, and those 152s are now doing 3,250. So they have pretty decent alpha for secondary guns when they hit. They just don't reload as fast. So like some players will they like playing Schlieffen because the secondaries fire faster on Schlieffen than the Libertad. But on the Libertad, you know, those hit even harder because you get 234mm secondaries. So even if you're letting fires tick, you don't get as much fire damage because your secondaries are just chewing through and just penetrating a lot. Like here, these 152s on this ship, when you have activated modified secondary munitions, you're pinning 38. Oh yeah, sorry, it pins 38 in general. There's no increase into the penetration. So those 152s help you, where the 127s pin 21mm, and both have a 5% chance of starting fire on target. And then when we talk about the 12 356mm guns, the AP does 9,800, the high explosive does 5,000. And then I wanted to see here, the fire chance on the high explosive does 31%, but then the fuse timer on the AP shells is standard. It's 0.033 seconds. So sometimes you'll notice that there are others that have like, I think some of the British battleships have the 0.0, was it 1.5? Like Thunder. So then you're less likely to over-penetrate targets. But you just get standard pin here on this ship. Beyond having the funny key, you just have a standard damage control party and a repair party. Now there's three things when we talk about the secondaries, but revolves around the damage control party, revolves around the repair party, and revolves around your rudder shift. That actually makes this ship rather strong and really good line to play, whether you're in ranked or in randoms battles. So starting with the damage control party, if standard damage control party action time, strip a few things off here, is 20 seconds. Now in the first slot, if you take the damage control party mod 1, you'll bump that up to 28 seconds. And then if you take emergency repair expert, then you're going to bump it up to a 30.8 second action time on the damage control party. So it's actually really good. I don't think I had that mounted. I don't know if I had it mounted in, this is on EU, I think I'm playing. So I don't know if I had this mounted on the EU server, but it makes your damage control party last a lot longer, which means, you know, you can resist fires for longer. You know, we'll talk about the armor scheme tomorrow on the upgrade commander build video on the ship. But that 30.8 seconds helps you a lot because of the repair party has a cooldown time of only 60 seconds. And if you, what was the word I wanted to use? So you could talk about taking something like improved repair party readiness, but I haven't so far on this line. It's possible to do that. Again, I'll talk about more of the build tomorrow. But having a 60-second cooldown time on the repair party and a 30.8 second damage control party, if you can kind of cycle them in between one another, it makes you a very difficult target to kill. Granted that the more larger high explosive shells in the game penetrating you a lot and doing a lot of damage, and that's what some of like Los Andes and the Libertad face when you start talking about German cruisers with quarter penetration value, the high explosive Japanese cruisers, SAP, some armor piercing in the game like Columbos and that will kind of pretty much wreck you. So you definitely want to avoid battleship SAP caliber if you can. And to an extent that you're, you know, with it being a brawling battleship, you're often trying to utilize islands as well as angling out. And on it, for this ship, as an example, if you build into the hull B, or hull A on the rudder shift, the third thing I wanted to get into about the few things we're talking about. Hull A, your rudder shift time is, let's see here. Oops, I gotta take this off. Let's say you just had damage control system mod 2 on the 4th slot. You have a 16.88 second reload time, or sorry, rudder shift time, and then you get hull B, it drops down to 12.05 seconds, which is actually really close to the Los Andes in the Libertad if you take the rudder shift or steering gears mod 1 in the 4th slot. So I don't think I had it maybe in this game, but if you take steering gears mod 1, you're dropping down to 9.64. So when you're looking in comparison to other ships in terms of your rudder shift time, the Red River here places second, only beaten out by the Vanguard, which has like this starts with a 9.7 second rudder shift time. So what makes the ship really trollish with rudder shift, and maybe the fourth thing I would say is that her built-in propulsion is you can fire a salvo, get all your 12 356mm guns off, and then swing back angle by the time an enemy battleship, let's say 14, 15 kilometers away, fires at you, make it more easier to avoid. It also helps especially avoiding torpedoes, avoiding planes that are coming in on you, right? Maybe even Dutch high explosive airstrikes. So there's a lot of maneuverability with this ship in terms of if you can just angle well, if you master the rudder shift along with your positioning, this ship is pretty hard to play. It's pretty hard to fight against. You know, you don't want to push yourself into an overwhelming situation where you're going to be focused down. And, you know, I just watched and I was playing Ops last night and watched a Libertad just kind of dies right off the first bat because the bots are going to focus the ship closest to them, right? So you won't be able to sustain focus fire. That's pretty much true of almost about any ship in the game. But certainly true when you're going in an operation where it's Japanese cruisers and German cruisers with much higher penetration value on their high explosive guns, in addition to the torpedoes that maybe like something like a Yoshino fires at you. So really the things you have to watch out most for is just being mindful of your broadside. You know, here I'm taking a bit of a gamble because I'm using the island, but the two islands between me and the Massachusetts. I'm turning out on the Brandenburg because he doesn't seem to be paying attention to us at the moment. And I want to set myself up in this kiting position again because we're in control. We don't have to push into Alpha Cap. We control B, we control C. It's 4v4. We have a 200, almost 200 point lead. So I don't have the need to kind of just throw myself into the jaws of the enemy team here. And that's kind of one of the big things when you're playing brawling battleships like this boat, is that you want to be mindful and just not overextending yourself. Just because you have secondaries doesn't mean to just throw yourself headfirst into the enemy team, or bow first in the enemy team. That you don't want to, here you can see, we both of our other players, we have one on the 4 line, there's another one on the 5 line, even the CV's up on the 6 line. So we're playing kind of within the safety and refuge of our teammates, while also isolating this engagement with the Massachusetts one-on-one. But we have our team to support us versus us just kind of charging in. And we're even angled away from the CV. With the built-in propulsion, it helps us to more quickly get out of the way in avoiding him, as well as torpedoes tied to the rudder shift, right? So I have had a lot of games where let's see, what is my average on EU and ranked? Let's see, potential damage average is 1.4 million. The most I've done in this boat is 2.3 in ranked on EU out of 19 battles, with a 63% run rate so far. Here, example of CV coming in, and then it was like, oh, I kind of missed my opportunity. If I'd kind of just kept going more towards the side there, I could have more easily avoided those torpedoes right when we were looking at the screen. So I just kind of, once I got positioned like that, I was like, oh, I can't do too much about it at that point. So if you're not careful, if not, you're used to a lot of the other battleships with a slow rotor shift time, you can definitely catch yourself off guard in terms of thinking that you still have to keep really heavily pressing into your rudder, and then end up showing a lot of broadside and get clapped for it. So you have to be mindful of the rudder, especially if you build into the rudder, and taking these steering gears on the 4 slot, which I think is definitely of value. Maybe more so on the Los Andes and the Libertad, just because you already have a really good rudder shift time with the B hull on Red River here. So kind of more getting to the closing thoughts with this ship, and I'll go over it more in detailed tomorrow during the upgrading commander build video. I think the ship's really good in ranked, especially because in ranked, it's typically you have where it's same tier matchmaking, right? So it's like just tier 8s only, and against her own tier, or if you're like, or there's sometimes I've done tier 8s and tier 7s, like really strong boat and really difficult for the enemy team to deal with. If you're in randoms, you're same tier matchmaking, or you're seeing 7s and 6s, you pretty much dominate. But then if you bottom tier and seeing tier 9s and tier 10s, then it becomes a little bit more challenging to play this ship in high tier matchmaking when you hit 9 and 10. So that's something you definitely have to be mindful of. I mean, one of the things that's nice, when we talk about more about randoms, which we don't have, you're not seeing in these battles, is submarines. Having the better rudder shift, having the propulsion has definitely helped me out avoiding submarine pings, submarine torpedoes, the homing, right? If you remember your DCP's on cooldown and you can't wipe the ping on your boat, then just being able to work your throttle, work your rudder is really helpful. So it is a bit of a difficult ship for subs and destroyer players to effectively land torps on. Now, something like deep water torpedoes, which you won't see till like maybe more last minute, that will definitely be much more difficult for you to be able to avoid, unless maybe you have a teammate nearby with hydro or things like that nature as an example. The other fun thing with this ship is you kind of see how our main battery turrets are traversing. So you can see our the turret in the midsection of the ship, and then the one on the stern here have to like turn a full, like, let's say 270, where you can see the other turrets are being able to turn much more effectively, the other 4, or they just kind of go especially when you're switching from a forward starboard to forward port and vice versa. But in reverse, you know, it's kind of the opposite issue where it's not just like oh yeah, it just turns with you, and no, the nose need to take the 270-degree turns. So, but anyhow, with that being said, that was 2 close quarters. First Blood, high caliber with 115,000 damage and 2 destroyed. And then going into the team score here, we're going to do pretty well in terms of the base XP, and that we picked up several caps, and then we shot down 21 planes, so that really inflated our base XP to 2,500 base XP. You know, otherwise, maybe it would be more around the 2,000 base XP. So value of shooting planes, value of getting caps, especially in ranked, it's a bit more, you can be a bit more cheeky with the boat, or maybe randoms is a bit more difficulty, especially when, you know, this is more of a 6v6 setting, right? It's not a 12v12 setting that you often find in randoms, usually, not always. That's 1.6 million potential damage. We took 77,000, and you can see breakdown between our high explosive and armor piercing shells in addition to the secondaries. And then with the premium account, this 309,000 credits earned. And I don't think we had any particular specific credit boosters on the ship, but maybe just some green ones, but nothing more than that here. So definitely a very strong boat in the randoms setting. So with that being said, tomorrow we're going to go into doing upgrade commander build video on this ship. I didn't get much time to play World of Warships as much this past week to be able to do. I was hoping to do upgrade commander build video, I think, on Devastation, and then I want to do one soon on the hull. So that's pending, but I'd never covered this ship because I just kind of jumped into Los Andes and the Libertad, so felt like, yeah, let's go ahead and cover this boat today. So if you liked this video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you subscribe, thanks so much. I would appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Until next time, take care.